We have Nicholas Gibbs, as usually we do on Tuesdays. How you doing, Nicholas?
Better than I deserve, as what's his name would say.
so, so, listen, it wasn't a very big news day, but we have had this one thing bouncing around. The Washington Post is bringing up once again the 2022 accident where an employee of Tesla was killed, possibly, that's what they say in the article, possibly while using FSD. They admit in the article that this is the only the only fatality that they can find. They have another one that they kind of mentioned, but I don't think they have nearly the confidence that that one was using FSD. So basically, in what has it been, 5, 6 years now of FSD? We have one case which the Washington Post wants to bring up from 2022 about somebody who was killed while maybe using FSD, and who was also 3 sheets to the wind, or 3 times the legal limit in terms of being drunk. So what did you think about all of this today?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it it's interesting that it comes up right on the back of all this Waymo headline, the car exploding or whatever was going on, and then everybody just beating on the car. It's funny that these things tend to come right up after, right? It's like, okay, well, something happened here. Let's bring up Tesla for a distraction. This happened. Let's bring up Tesla. Maybe that's conspiracy theory, but it's weird, right? Like, why would that even come up at this point? I mean, I feel like it's essentially a settled topic, right? FSD beta does not kill anybody. It can't kill anybody, period. This is the same rebuttal against anything Dan O'Dow does because FSD beta isn't liable. The onus is not on beta. The onus is on the driver. And if that driver is especially inebriated, there's nothing to even talk about here. There's not even news here. You're inebriated behind the wheel of a motor vehicle. This, even if you just have your key in the ignition, that's a DUI, right?
Right.
It's on the driver. It's on the human, and it's just unreal how we can't have how we just have a society wanting to point fingers and never looking in the mirror. It just baffles me. I mean, what do you think when that came up? What was your initial reaction?
Yeah, again, it's exactly the same. I mean, Tesla makes it so clear. Everybody, you'll have articles that say, "Oh, you have to look on the last page of the in small print of the." Are you kidding me? The fact that you should be alert on FSD is everywhere. You have the steering wheel giving you a haptic. If you don't keep totally attentive, you've got a light. I'm sorry, you've got a camera that is looking at you to decide if you're even awake or asleep or just slightly distracted. I saw a post on X yesterday where somebody said that they barely looked down at their phone and the thing was already giving them heck. They were like, "Wait a minute, this is not fair." So yeah, I think in fact every indication is that people are significantly safer when they're using FSD. So let's go back to seatbelts. A seatbelt, the thing I didn't wear a seatbelt for about the first 3 months that it was law. This is when you were a baby, or maybe not born yet. In fact, I'm pretty sure not born yet. And the first 3 months I didn't wear it. Why didn't I wear it? Because I was afraid that I might be in a flip crash, not able to open the door, not able to get out of my seatbelt. I might be trapped, and I'm claustrophobic, and that just was too crazy for me to even contemplate. Well, then I read a few more statistics, and it was like the odds of that happening are about a little less than a shark bite, but the odds of the seatbelt saving your life were like really significant. So I think that's what we're talking about here. Could FSD in some weird way contribute or make it harder to avoid a situation? Maybe, I don't know. We haven't seen that yet, at least so far as we know. This example can't even be an example because the guy was drunk. It might have saved his life. It'd be probably 10 times more likely, 100 times more likely to save his life because it would be avoiding situations that he might not see because he's not doing so well.
Yeah, that's where, the whole like the whole scenario of possibilities never gets discussed. And to your point here, right? For all we know, maybe FSD beta was on, and maybe by beta being on, it avoided killing other people. It avoided other accidents. At the same time, even if FSD beta is on, everything is going right, all the driver has to do is press on the brake and now it's off. Maybe they didn't realize it because they were inebriated, but they thought it was on, but it wasn't. Or they just, held on to steering wheel too hard, took out of beta, and again, they're not paying attention. They're drunk. Maybe they got the music going, and that's it, right? Like that, the possibilities is infinite on what could have happened. So even if it was on, you still can't say that it's because it malfunctioned in the software
Right.
in any way. It's human error,
Right.
one way or another. So it's just silly. I mean, I don't know what has to happen for us to get past all this. I know you'll hear like Mr. Gerber and Mr. Black, and everybody has their 2 cents on, well, somehow it all ties back to being Elon's fault because of he's bringing all this upon himself, right? Because he's just this man that won't just shut up, apparently. But this is a bigger problem. I mean, this is a societal culture. I don't know. It's just like cancerous in our society that we do this. And the craziest thing is we do this to the company that should be the most celebrated company within our country. It's just baffling on so many levels.
The other thing that always comes to my mind when I read these things is that we have the camera system. The camera obviously was taking video. The Tesla has that video. I'm positive they have that information because as soon as the accident happened, it would have saved that section, and I believe it uploads it automatically to Tesla after that accident. I could be wrong about that, but the individuals who owned the car, they would have had the video. They could have accessed the video. I just did it in Las Vegas a few weeks ago. Our car was damaged in a parking lot. We were able to see the person who hit us. We were able to see the person getting a security guard and having them come over. We saw the whole thing. So I suspect that in some of these cases, Tesla can't release what they know about the accident because there's legal things still going on, and possibly they can't release the information. But it would seem like the parties, again, maybe they don't want to release it either for reasons of litigation. But somebody has that information, and it would make it even more clear as to exactly what happened in the situation. As you point out, did they actually turn off FSD a minute before, or 30 seconds before, or 2 seconds before, by jerking the wheel or by hitting the brake? So yeah, at some point, I guess we'll probably learn what was on the cameras.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the dash cam footage is ever sent back to Tesla. I think that's um, a personal privacy thing, right? I mean, because for all you know, somebody could be doing intimate things in the car that you don't want to be out there. But I obviously the exterior footage does get sent back as long as you approve it.
Mhm.
But even then, I mean, the story of what happened is really based on because Tesla is so software based, right? Every input, everything that happens has a log output of what's happening. And so you can just look at the logs and see,
Right.
okay, when was beta engaged? When was beta not engaged? When was it disengaged? What happened prior to a crash, right?
Right.
When a crash happens, airbags deploy. Okay, well, where's the delta between if beta was, put what was activated, deactivated, airbags, right? So all of that's timed. So Tesla knows immediately if they're at fault, if FSD was engaged or not. So that's the beauty of having a software defined car is that you have logs for everything. So there's no questioning. I mean, same when people say, "Oh, the brakes failed." No, we can look at the logs. We know what was input, what was output. So it's very binary in that sense.
So, we had another crash story today. You
Nice
like
transition. That is
that? Yes.
let's everybody give a like just for that transition. That was good.
There you go. Thank you so much. So, yeah, we had a crash. I think it was called the stock market and the bond market, both crashing like crazy today. Well, yesterday, TruFlation came out for the very first time ever, and they said, we think we know what the CPI is going to be tomorrow. We've got all this data. We think we can put our computers to work here, and we can predict what the market's going to, what the CPI is going to be tomorrow. Well, I don't know who's going to get fired. Because they predicted 2.5 and it came out at 3.1, which was still a good number, down from 3.4 the previous month. But man, they missed it by a whole bunch. But the street missed it too. The economists who were polled missed it. Everybody missed it. And it went down not as much as was expected. And the bonds went up 12 basis points, and the stock market, the Dow went down 530. I've got it marked down here someplace. See, the Dow was down 1.35, the NASDAQ was down 1.8%, and the S&P was down 1.37. Tesla actually held its own, only down 2.1, when normally it probably would have been down 3.5 based on its delta. Yeah, it was not a great day on the markets. And is this a relief rally anyway? Was this like, okay, we're gonna it's gone up so much in the first few weeks of the year, we just have to take a breather?
That's a good question. I think this was a lot of just high frequency, fast acting algorithms that were just triggering based off of what was going on, right? Just seeing headlines and what the numbers came out to that they were triggering ahead of time. Um, but I also think that, it, the market was expecting, what was it, a March rate cut. I don't want to say the market was really expecting. I would say there was the predictions. I mean, the market is a short-term market expectation was March, right?
Yes.
It was about 70%, what, a month ago?
Yeah.
And now it's obviously like a 0%.
Right.
I think June is like 70%, July is like 100% that's going to have a rate cut. So I think a lot of that, it just played into these algorithms that were doing things right away. So I would look today, in my opinion, it was just all noise. Most day-to-day action tends to be just noise.
Right.
But I do think there was a little bit of, okay, the Fed has been wrong so much, right? It was August last year. They were saying there was going to be another rate hike. But now, it stands to reason to say, okay, well, maybe it's a good thing that the Fed is being more cautious, because we would almost rather than be a little more cautious and start to see some cracks and then having to do what I keep saying, which is when they do rate cuts, it'll be faster, more aggressive than we expect. You'd almost prefer that, just to ensure that we don't have a mess up the other way and we reignite inflation. So I don't know. I think the market was just being really temperamental with all of this. What was your initial thought? Because I know we're going to dive a little deeper into this.
Yeah, so my initial thoughts were, are you kidding me? I mean, it was like, okay, they didn't, it's still down. And then it's the CPI. It's not the PCE. It's not the Fed's favorite. It's the CPI. The PCE was only out 2 weeks ago, and it was showing 7 straight months in a row under 2%. So do you take the outlier CPI, the one print, and go, oh no, it's not as good as we were hoping, and it's all over, and we should just all run to shelter by 500 and something points on the Dow? It was up, it was 700 at one point. It's like,
Yeah.
what are we even talking about here? So that was kind of my first thought. My second thought was this: if the United States government is using flawed data that is based on old information, and they're using that to set interest rates and make decisions about the money supply and stimulating or trying to slow the economy, and this incorrect data could materially impact businesses, individuals, state and local governments, and even the world economy. Should somebody in the government or the Fed stand up and say it's time to fix this tool?
I mean, yeah, but to be honest, you're not going to get it from someone like Jerome Powell, right? I mean, he that's the I don't know what it is with our government. It's so weird. We live in the country that has the fastest, most brilliant type of innovation in the entire world, right? It's
A
it's
lot.
literally where all innovation happens at this point. Yet our government has the most latency out of almost any other government when it comes to implementing technology. You don't see that with Middle Eastern countries. You don't see that with Far East countries. I mean, if you go to like Singapore, Japan, parts of China, if you go to Saudi Arabia, if you go to UAE, Dubai, like it's amazing how they have so much they're just so far advanced with when it comes to incorporating technology into their government. I'm not saying that like, in our military and stuff like that, we don't have technology. Clearly we do. But with these processes, right? These basic, I mean, the fact that we still do polls based on picking up phones and seeing, sending out snail mail to see, hey, how many people live in your house, like it's insane that we have these processes, and CPI is right up there with what you're saying. The fact that we don't have literally an hour by hour understanding of where inflation is in our country, this isn't that hard. They literally go out and look at stores and look at what prices are, pick up the phone, make some phone calls. Like these things should be so automated, and it's such an easy thing to automate. I mean, I know TruFlation is doing it, and I think TruFlation is more accurate than what we're seeing here. I do think these are latent numbers, and it's clear it is. Now, I'm not saying that we have deflation per se in a broad
Right.
sense.
Right.
Some sectors we do, but I don't trust these numbers. How can I trust these numbers? Every number, even the last CPI was revised. It was
Yeah.
revised
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
So how can I ever trust these numbers? The jobs numbers have been wrong every single month for what, like the last 8, 9 months?
Right. Right.
CPI has been wrong. I
Not
mean,
just
just
wrong, not just wrong,
very
wrong by
wrong.
35%, wrong
Yeah.
by huge numbers, wrong in one case by over 100,000 jobs, revised upward by over 100,000 jobs last month. It was just crazy. So we have Zillow, we have Redfin, we have realestate.com. We have all these different organizations that chart these rents and chart the home prices, and they've got the data. They've got that real-time data you're talking about. So if I'm the CPI and I'm putting together my numbers and I come up with the rents are up 0.4% for the month, or it's either 0.3 or 0.4% for the month, giving it a run rate
It
of,
was point 0.6
well, that was the combination. That included home, residential home.
equivalent rents.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
right. Okay,
right.
you're right.
Equivalent rents for homes. But I think it was 4%. It was either 0.4 or 0.3% for regular leases and rents. If I've got that number and I've just looked at Redfin and I've just looked at Zillow and I've just looked at realestate.com and all of their numbers are completely different than mine, wouldn't I be going back and like quadruple checking and sextuple checking my numbers to find out why in the world I'm so far off compared to these people who make a living where their living depends on them being right?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
but what's crazy is the way they calculate it,
Yeah.
because what they do is they don't. So when it comes to the housing part of the CPI, it's so convoluted, right? This CPI report we have is supposed to look at what was the month over month change from in January, right? All right. That's pretty much the way it is for every single thing. But when it comes to housing, no, 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 that is not what we're going to do. Instead, we take what was the change in January, what was the change 6 months prior in that month. So in this case, it'd be what, August? Let's average that, and that's our number. And
Right.
so they take those two data points. It's so convoluted. And so, of course, whatever we see here is not accurate. So it's I don't know. It's just not a good way. I mean, that's literally why the Fed prefers PCE as their preferred measure, is because
Right.
there's so many bad ways that these numbers are calculated. But I do think, in general, for me, it's somewhat bullish in the big scheme of things, because to me, this continues to make me feel more confident on what I think is going to happen, where the Fed will cut more aggressively. when they do cut, right? Again, so I just really don't believe in this narrative that they're going to do a quarter point here, skip a month, do a quarter point, skip a month, do a quarter. Like, I don't believe that's how it's going to happen. I think it's going to be, maybe we do a quarter point, then it's going to be 50, then it's going to be 75, right? I think it'll be fast and aggressive, whichever way they do it. But the reason I think I was bullish is because I think Tesla's going to continue to suffer, right? At the end of the day, Tesla's going to continue to suffer. They're going to continue to cut prices. They're going to continue to just try to move inventory, and we can tell they're ramping up production. But their goal is going to be to continue to move inventory, and they're not going to have any relief until rates come down. And so it's bullish to me because once this finally happens, at the very least, we'll know a couple things. One, we'll know that the chances are that they're not going to make a mistake and cut too early. So there's a good sign for that. But two, we know that there'll be a huge rotation going back into these interest sensitive, or these stocks are interest sensitive, interest rate sensitive. And so it's just very obvious it's going to happen, right? It's very clear that it will happen. And so just being able to see the forest for the trees, I think there is optimism to be had here because it'll prevent a mistake. It'll prevent moving too early. And then really, hopefully, this means that the Fed's not going to make any decisions based off politics, which them holding off, I think, is somewhat of a good sign.
So if you're going to play the optimist, I guess I have to play the foil. So
bring it,
because this is Good News Tuesday, and that's why you're hired as co-host. We pay you the big bucks because you bring this optimistic outlook. Well, Larry Goldberg last night on Good News Monday said he thinks 100% there's going to be a recession coming up in maybe even in the second quarter is when he thinks the recession will start. He's looking at the copper prices continuing down, looking at natural gas falling off a cliff, looking at oil staying really, really subdued in pricing, even with the Red Sea and the Middle East and all the things that are going on there. Looking at all the rest of the commodities except for cocoa, orange juice, and sugar being down, 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 down month after month. Looking at employment numbers, as you and I may have talked about, I think we did at one point, the employment numbers, they look great. And if you look at the headline number, but when you get deeper into those numbers, it was part-time jobs, not full-time jobs. I mean, 100% part-time jobs, and full-time jobs were actually down. Hourly hours worked was down. We've got all these layoffs in tech coming almost every single day. There was 2 more announcements today, one from Paramount, for 3% of the workforce. And I forget who the second one was, but there was 2 announcements today on significant cutting. I think Snap also, didn't they also have a layoff number when they reported a couple of days ago? I think they did. So you've got a lot of stuff going on like that. And Larry's saying, you know what? Yeah, it's coming in the second quarter. And I'm going to say that based on what happened today, that we're now probably June, to be realistic, when these rate cuts are going to come, unless the PCE comes in like crazy low. We are probably looking at June. Well, isn't that the opposite problem that the Fed is talked about, has stated? We also could wait too long and inflation could crash down through to deflation. And then you've got another problem. So what do you think?
I like Larry. I think he's wrong, respectfully. I think we have been in I'm in the Cathy Woods camp. I think we've been in a rolling recession. I'm in the tech sector, so I saw it there very hard. I don't think that we're gonna see mass layoffs in the tech sector anytime soon. We had those already. The tech sector took it on the chin in pretty much all of 2023, and now we're seeing the fruits of that. Right, we're seeing these companies post amazing profits now. The year of efficiency and leaning and optimizing, right? It just the only word you ever heard was we're optimizing. We're optimizing. It's all we ever heard all year last year when it came to tech. So I don't think you're going to see mass layoffs there. I think we've been having it. It's been going through sector through sector. We saw what happened with the banks. And so I think we've been having a rolling recession. everything you're saying right now, I agree as far as all these prices coming down. But the way I see it, all that's doing is allowing us to import deflation, or at least, import deflation here. Look, China's in a recession. I would just say Europe as a whole is pretty much in a recession. I don't think we're going to get hit. I think we're going to sneak past any kind of, recession that I guess the government determines as a recession. Although I do think in about 18 months, they'll be like, oh, yeah, we did have a recession after all. Um, so I don't see we're not going to have two negative GDPs like that. That that's not, it's not going to happen in my opinion. I think the economy is really strong right now, and people are holding on, and people are, frankly, they're surviving out there. Now, I think the worst is behind us as far as high prices, and prices are coming down. We're seeing that across the board. And so if we know that prices are coming down and we see that, and people survived this last year when prices were at their all-time high, well, then where's the recession going to come? Like, we don't have a jobs issue. There's plenty of jobs out there right now. People are employed, and they're making decent money. I mean, McDonald's is now paying people $20 an hour. Like, it's I I don't see it personally. Now, I do agree with you that it does seem like now rates are going to be pushed till June. I don't really care when it happens. Like, it's going to happen. That's all we really need to know, is that it's going to happen. And until then, I think you're going to see Tesla hurt more and more, or just stay in this range bound, right? And that's the hurt, right? The hurt is that it's staying in this range bound when we feel, when we feel that this is easily a $300 to $400 stock a year ago, right? That's how most of us feel. And right now, a lot of people probably feel like, are we just bad investors? Are we wrong? Right? And a lot of people are questioning, like, is this real? Am I just in my own echo chamber? And you know what? This is healthy for you to think about. It's healthy for everybody to think about. But at the end of the day, what I know is every single day, my car drives me everywhere we need to go. We're at the point where my wife is always using it. My wife does not feel safe not using it at this point. All right. And my wife, before, I remember, like 11.3.6 or 10.3.6, she was saying, oh my God, this thing's making me car sick. Right now, she won't drive without it.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm seeing this. We're seeing with Omar, like we're seeing what's happening. And if you truly believe, sorry, I know I'm going to rant here. If you truly believe in this whole AI movement, let me just ask you, what other company is doing something with AI out there that you can use other than something on your computer screen?
Yeah. Yeah.
There
No,
is no
you,
other
yeah.
company.
We will be in 100% agreement on the future of Tesla. Of course, I have my 2026 theory that it's all going to come together in 2026 in terms of execution on a full range of things. But the short term is another story. I'm still at 50-50 on whether we have a recession. Unlike Larry, I think if we have one, it'll start in the third quarter, partially because of the difficulty of hitting last year's increases. So we had massive increases in the GDP in the third and fourth quarter, unexpected increases in the third and fourth quarter. So beating those increases, getting above those increases could be a real problem because the government spending won't be going up as much as it did. But the government spending went up a lot in those two quarters, and it won't be doing that again this year. And so there's that. There is the services industries where there still is inflation. There is homes, as we talked about, the cost of individual residences is still going up quite quickly, and that's partly because the interest rates are high, which is backwards. But we've talked about that a lot on this channel. And Cathy Wood also says we're going to have a recession, and you just mentioned her as somebody you think is right. So she thinks that we have a real shot at a recession. So you think there's a 0 chance of recession? You think there's a 10%? What do you think?
Well, I mean, again, I think we're in a rolling recession.
Recession already.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
A
and
technical recession.
yeah, yeah. So Cathy Wood says that, and again, I don't agree with everything one person says. Just because I agree with a certain thing doesn't mean I agree with everything they say. Um, but, but yeah, I mean, of course there's a chance, I, if we were going to have a recession, I would probably say it would be in 2025, to be honest. I don't think it'd be in 2024. Um, I just think with the presidential election coming up, we're still seeing strong GDP. You make a very good argument on the lapping of the year over year, but even with that, I mean, we're still. I'm not saying we're gonna have a strong of GDP, but I mean, we're still doing really well on the big scheme of things. And even then, can you even trust those numbers? I mean,
No.
GDP is really such an archaic way to measure an economy,
Yeah.
right? Like there's so much that isn't captured within GDP. So I don't even know if that's. I mean, this whole system should be rethought, to be frank. But but no, I think things are going to be fine on that front. It's an election year. That really does mean something, despite it should or shouldn't. You know,
So did you happen to catch my show where I talked about the really weird two times that the incumbent was reelected? The only two times in recent recorded history where the incumbent was reelected and the stock market and the economy did not do well was Obama and um, Bush. No, wait, was it Bush too? Yeah, that was
yeah, Bush, because then
Bush,
that's when we
yeah,
got into
Bush,
'08.
Bush too. We had the stock market didn't like that he was reelected, and Obama, when he was reelected, the market hated it. It was down big time. So those are the only two times where the incumbent was reelected where we had a bad market. And generally speaking, if you have a change in government, that's really, really good for the economy and for the markets initially, at least. So when you talk about presidential elections effects, that's another part of it is that we've got most of the time, but now we've got a president who's running for reelection who has a very specific handicap, which seems to be I'm sorry, I know we're both um, have a political inclination to prefer to not prefer this party, but taking that out of the equation and looking at it just as a political scientist, it's odd that we're going into a presidential election where even his own party thinks he's addled.
I mean, don't doubt the Vegas odds. Is all I'm saying. You know, it's Vegas seems to think that there's a good chance that someone else is going to be announced at the DNC. So we'll see what happens on that front. Right now, I mean, it's just not looking good for Biden on many fronts. I mean, truth be told, after these last few numbers that we saw, employment, all that, all Biden had to do was not say anything. But then the other day, that whole faux pas about my memory's great and all that, and then make the mix up with Mexico and Egypt and the presidents. Yeah, it just it's all that you see circling around the headlines, and it again. Maybe this sounds like conspiracy theory stuff, but when you see channels like CNN, MSNBC, CNBC even, and they're the ones that are also talking about it, it makes you wonder if they're trying to make a change here. And then out of nowhere, Kamala Harris comes out saying that she's ready to go. Like it just seems like there's something going on. And look, let's be honest. How many conspiracy theories do we have to live through, and then they turn out to be real? To start thinking, okay, when we smell smoke, hey, there tends to be fire somewhere. So I don't know. We'll see. It's clear Trump's going to be the Republican nominee.
Right.
I think if things stay as they are, it's going to be a pretty big landslide for Trump. Is the way I'm seeing it right now. So it'll be interesting to see what the Democrats do. I think they're going to push hard for something, but we'll know more at the convention.
Obviously, yes, of course. Well, okay, so that's pretty much what the day was all about. We had really, really quite the unexpected turn of events today. We've got Tesla in the after hours actually up just a tad,
Good news.
0.06% in the after hours, which I keep doing it wrong here. It is up wait a minute, that can't be right. That's incorrect. Oh, I see what I'm doing wrong. Okay. So it's up 11 cents. So significant uptick there. Let's take a look at those bonds because that's what's really mattering right now. I keep hoping that we're going to get past bonds and start thinking about earnings as the most important thing again. But no, we can't have that. So we've got the 10-year and the after hours up another just a half a basis point. So not that bad. We've got pretty much all of the long bonds that are up in that range. The 2 years 0.4 basis, 3 years 0.9. So yeah, all in that kind of range. And the shorter ones, the 2 month up 2, the 1 month up 4 basis points. Holy mackerel. So spreading out those inversions again. Oh, by the way, one guy who really is, oh, he's the one that believes you should use the 3 month versus the 10-year as your inversion point. He's saying what you just said. He thinks the recession comes in the first quarter of 2025 based on the inversion situation. When it's been this long and it's stayed this long, he thinks it'll be approximately the first quarter of next year.
Who's that?
I can't remember. But if you want to look him up, he's a 10-year, 3 month inversion. If you put that in the line,
Google.
I bet you'll find him.
Yeah.
Let's see where oil is going on here. Just a second. We have got oil down another 14 cents, sitting at 77.73. That's just about where it's been for a few days now in that 76, 77 range. Brent unchanged. Natural gas down another 8.89% at a buck 67. I think it was $2.22 like a week ago Monday. It's like
Yeah.
crazy. So yeah, I reported last night that the natural gas situation appears to be that the bet is winter is over. There's not going to be any significant additional winter stuff, and there's just a glut of gas. There's just too much of it, way too much in storage, way too much of it being created. We have got the dollar even. We have got gold down $3.40, almost a break below 2000 again. So, okay, help me out here. Inflation, rush to safety, gold. No, gold is down
Bitcoin.
70. Gold is down $75 in the last few days.
People rushing to Bitcoin.
They're rushing to Bitcoin.
Much to Jamie Dimon's dismay. It seems like people rushing to Bitcoin.
Well, Bitcoin went over 50 yesterday, over 50,000 yesterday, but now it's down to 49.5, and it was down even more earlier today. So, but yes, it certainly looks like for whatever reason they're going to Bitcoin, whether it's the halving, whether it's because they're getting out of everything else, so they need someplace to put their money. Whether it's inflation, I don't know, but yeah, they definitely seem to be heading that way. We'll look at the pre-market here. We've got the Dow down 18 or 0.05%, S&P down 25, which is 0.01%, call that even, and the NASDAQ pretty much even, also down 0.05%. So no real direction for tomorrow morning. Do we get a rebound tomorrow morning off of this massive sell-off today?
Yeah, tomorrow's gonna be a green day.
Green day for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just
What
I'm just placing my bets. That's all.
your
Yeah.
bet is, yeah, after that blow off, it'll be green unless there's some other wonderful news. Now, there is a lot of reporting tomorrow. I forget what all hits tomorrow, but I know there's quite a number. I think housing starts, maybe a bunch of of these smaller reports, but any one of them, of course, can have an impact. One of my theories, by the way, is that housing could save the economy this year.
Oh, really?
It's
Do
20%.
tell.
It's 20% of the market. So about 10% of the entire GDP is home construction. I guess it's home and apartment construction, residential construction. And then another 10% of the economy is the mortgages, the lawns that have to be put in, the refrigerators that get bought, when people move into a new house. So you got almost 20% of the market that has to do with residential housing being built. There's such a dearth, such a shortage that people were buying those new homes like crazy in November and December, which is off season, with interest rates at 6.8, 6.9, 7.0, 7.1. So I think there's a good chance that these home builders are going to continue to think it's a good time to build, and that could really give a stimulus to the economy. A lot of those tech engineers might have to learn how to drive a nail.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm one of those people. We bought another house in December.
Right.
Well, I guess we closed in January, but we wanted a contract in December. Yeah, I mean, I have a theory that future generations will not own homes.
Oh,
It's sad to say. Short of you going to school to work in tech or to be a doctor or a lawyer, or just something that, or entrepreneur, something that makes you a lot of, brings in a lot of income, a lot of revenue into your household. I just don't see how people are gonna be able to afford houses. It's just insane out there right now. So it's sad, but I think the whole you'll own nothing and you'll be happy movement,
yeah,
the
right.
Davos, it really seems like it's somehow playing out, right? They said that you'll own nothing, you'll rent, you'll never own your house, and you'll be happy and you'll love it. And it's I thought that was all just kind of like, conspiracy theory, Illuminati, whatnot. But somehow it seems like we're in that type of world. I talk to a lot of people that are, you know, you know, 5, 10 years younger than me, and you, they're sitting there saying like, I don't even think of ever owning a house in my life. Like it's like impossible, and it's crazy that people have that mentality.
Yeah,
When I came out of college, I bought a house within 2 months.
yeah, yeah,
That was my mentality. It was like, I'm
right.
not going to rent, I'm going to buy, I'm going to own.
Yeah.
But it's been a paradigm shift.
So here's I'll slap back just a little bit.
Bring it. I could use it.
Number one, you've got people that are not moving out of their parents' house till they're 27. Then they don't get married at all, or if they do, they get married in their 30s. They don't start a family, they don't start having kids until their mid 30s.
I think
So
you're making my point.
yeah, well, no. So, but I'm not sure that that's because the cause is not because of the price of the house. The cause is because of other underlying social issues that are causing them not to mate, not to have children. Things like worry about the future, worry about overpopulation destroying the world ecosystems and whatnot. They've been drilled on that, drilled on that, drilled on that. So there's a whole bunch of reasons that would be an entirely different program on even a different channel
Yeah. Yeah.
as to why young people are not having children right now, are not even getting married, not even having sex. 30% in Japan, 30% in South Korea, not having sex. If they're 30 years old, they're still virgins. 30%. So nutty. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. So that, I think, if you don't have a mate, it makes it much harder to get a house. If you don't have a working mate, even if you have a mate and they're not working, you're going to be more inclined to have a house if you're going to start a family. If you're not going to start a family, you might not want to be held in one location. The benefit of renting is you can pick up and move to Florida, move to California, move to New York, whatever. You don't have to stay where you are. You have the flexibility to just pick up and move. I did a whole bunch of studies one time, a lot of real estate clients, and did a long study about why people rent versus why they buy. And there's a whole bunch of reasons like that about the flexibility of being able to just pick up and go. It's also a downtown thing. Young people, a lot of times, they want to live in the city, and you have to rent if you're going to live in the city. Now, the opposite side of all of that, I know that I'm now the one that's on a rant. The opposite side of that is that young people sometimes are thinking that they should move into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch house in the best neighborhood as their first home. Well, that's never been true. It wasn't true when I was a kid. I was a graduate of law school, UCLA Law. My first house was a condo. It was not even a, well, it was a townhouse, but it was a townhouse because that's what I could afford until I could get enough equity built up and enough income to move into a freestanding home. So people need to get their thinking straight that you might have to be even in an apartment style condo for 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years before you can actually move. But you need to get something. You need to get that first investment. And in California, believe it or not too far from me in Riverside, you can still buy a condo like that for 150, 175,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on a lot of points there. I mean, I know we're pretty far off Tesla at this point, but it's all tied, right?
Yes, it
Because
is.
it's a mindset. I think everything you said is spot on, and there's so many other things to layer onto it. Yeah, I mean, there's this like I don't know what it is, what happened, but people don't have that want and that desire to be wealthy anymore, right? I'm gonna bust my butt and work hard because I have these aspirations to do this, right? It's now seen almost as a bad thing to want to be rich. Like that's mind blowing to me,
Right.
right? And it's like it's become like this perverse thing, like where we attack millionaires and billionaires, and instead of celebrating that success, like that used to be the American dream, was
Right.
to be wealthy, to do that, to have that, and now it's almost like frowned upon, and people, to your point, are have these, they see Instagram and Snapchat and social media and celebrities, and it's just all this that they're being fed of what life should be and how it should be, and all these influencers, and that's not reality, and it may be their reality, but there's a
Right.
lot of things you probably don't see, right? You
Right.
probably don't see that they bought that $120,000 condo, they lived in it for 3 years, it appraised, maybe they made an extra 100 grand on that, they took it out, 1031 exchange, rolled into another house, did a renovation there, rolled down to another one. Now they got this one. Take out a HELOC. Maybe they did an investment with that. I mean, like, you don't see all that stuff. All you see is the end result.
Right. Right.
And people don't see the hard work that went into it, right? We're becoming a society that doesn't value the hard work.
Right.
We just want to be at the destination. And
Right.
it's sad, right? Everything is cured by a pill, by buying something, by taking a shortcut, how to get rich fast. It's hard work is just not valued anymore. And here, I'll tie it back, and that's really what Elon Musk is all about: is working hard, putting in the hours, right? Doing something bigger than self to get to where you want to be, right? And it all perpetuates itself, but none of it happens without sweat equity and without putting the hours in, without putting the time in.
Right.
So I don't know. We need a wake up call in this country.
It's a fact. It's a reality, and maybe we'll get one. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll have a different kind of way of thinking soon for one
Soon.
or any for one reason or another. We're not sure exactly which one. All right, Nicholas Gibbs, thank you so much for co-hosting on this amazing day. When, of course, it was positive. It was good news Tuesday because why? Because as you point out, even a recession is good news. Recessions wipe out all the junk so that you get another new start. So good news
Yeah.
Tuesday. Thanks again, Nicholas, for being with me.
Well said.
We'll see you next week. And to all of you
Cheers,
out
everybody.
there, been great talking to you.